Have you ever walked through a landscape so surreal? It felt like you had stepped into the pages of a fantasy novel. A place where the cliffs rise so high they seem to touch the sky, and the air is constantly filled with the sound of rushing water. Welcome to Lauterbrunnen, Switzerland. This isn't just another alpine village. It is a geological masterpiece carved by glaciers during the last ice age. Known as the Valley of 72 Waterfalls, it is a place where nature operates on a vertical scale. Today, we are going to walk this valley together, exploring the history, the culture, and the sheer scale of this alpine wonder. Walking through the village today, it is easy to get lost in the beauty of the flower-adorned chalets and the energy of excited travellers. But for centuries, this valley was a quiet, isolated world. The name Lauterbrunnen was first recorded in 1240 as in Claro Fonte, meaning clear spring, a tribute to the fresh water that defines life here. Life wasn't always about postcards and tourism. For a long time, this was a poor farming community. And in the 16th and 17th centuries, it was actually a mining hub. Villagers worked iron mines further up the valley in Lauterbrunnen, struggling to make a living in the shadow of these giants. It was a hard life hidden away from the rest of Europe. That changed in the 1800s. The golden age of alpinism brought a new kind of visitor, British climbers, poets, and writers like Lord Byron and Johann Wolfgang Goethe. They came not to mine the mountains, but to conquer them or to write about their sublime beauty. At first, they actually had to sleep in the local rectory, simply because there were no hotels. The real turning point came with the engineers. In 1834, the first road finally connected the village to Interlaken, and by 1890, the Bernese Oberland Railway arrived. Suddenly, the isolated valley was accessible. Grand hotels sprang up to host Victorian travellers, and Lauterbrunnen transformed from a quiet farming hamlet into the gateway to the Jungfrau region. Today, it is one of the most popular destinations in Switzerland, sometimes welcoming more visitors than it has residents. It has become a magnet for photographers and nature lovers, all drawn by that same pull that brought the first explorers here. The feeling of being small in a place that is incredibly, magnificently big. So why did the world fall in love with this specific valley? It started with the search for the sublime, a philosophical idea from the 18th century. Travellers wanted to feel overwhelmed by nature, to feel small in the face of God or creation. In 1779, Johann Wolfgang von Goethe stood right here watching the mist of the waterfalls, and wrote the famous poem song of the spirits over the waters. He wasn't the only one. Lord Byron visited in 1816, describing the Stobbock Falls as the tail of a white horse streaming in the wind. These literary giants effectively created the first viral marketing campaign for Lauterbrunnen. For the next century, the wealthy elite of Europe flocked here on their grand tour, hoping to see the same views that inspired the poets. In the 20th century, the draw shifted from poetry to adrenaline. Look up at those cliff edges because they are so vertical. Lauterbrunnen became the global capital for base jumping. It is considered a mecca for the sport, with roughly 20,000 jumps made here every year. For these athletes, the valley isn't just a view, it is the ultimate playground. Pop culture played a massive role too. In 1969, the world saw this landscape in the James Bond film on Her Majesty's Secret Service. The villain's lair was filmed just above us at the Shilthon summit. That film proved that this wasn't just a place for quiet reflection. It was a place for action. And today, the motivation has evolved again. In the digital age, Lauterbrunnen is one of the most viral locations on Earth. The visual perfection of the village, the waterfalls, the trains, the chalets, fits the modern aesthetic perfectly. People come now to capture that same sublime feeling Goethe wrote about. But today, they share it instantly with the world. There is a reason this place feels like a storybook. It is because, in many ways, it is one. In 1911, a 19-year-old J.R.R. Tolkien hiked across Switzerland, and when he walked through this valley, the sheer limestone walls and misty peaks left a permanent mark on his imagination. He later admitted that the elven valley of Rivendell in The Lord of the Rings was directly inspired by his journey here. When you look at the geography, you can see why. It feels hidden, protected, and ancient. But the elves aren't the only legend here. This is officially known as the Valley of 72 Waterfalls. Everywhere you look, water is cascading from hanging valleys, turning into mist before it even hits the ground. That is the defining vibe of Lauterbrunnen. It is a bucket list destination, not just because it is pretty, but because of the scale. You are walking on a green alpine meadow, but you are flanked by vertical rock faces that shoot up hundreds of meters on both sides. It is a geological cathedral, massive, loud, with the sound of water, and utterly surreal. While the waterfall itself is the main event, the most famous view of it isn't from the base. It is from a small, unassuming path just off the main road. On the maps, you will find it near the Chalet Pyronette, but you will probably recognize it before you even get there, because of the people. This little walkway has become the definitive image of Lauterbrunnen. It offers a composition that feels almost too perfect to be real. The winding path in the foreground, the classic Swiss chalet, the spire of the village church, and the massive Staubbach falls framing it all in the background. It is a quiet corner that has gone globally viral. In the mornings and at sunset, you will see photographers and travellers lining up here, waiting for their turn to capture the classic shot. It is a modern pilgrimage of sorts, everyone wanting to take a piece of this fantasy world home with them. In almost every picture taken of Lauterbrunnen, your eye is drawn to one building, the small white church with its pointed spire. This is the Kirche Lauterbrunnen. While the waterfalls are the soul of the valley, this church is its heart. It stands almost perfectly aligned with the Staubbach Fall, a man-made needle standing next to nature's giant. The building you see today isn't as old as the landscape, but it has deep roots. It was constructed in 1832, replacing an older, smaller Gothic church that had stood here since 1488. In those early days, the valley was so poor and isolated that the villagers built their first church without even asking for permission from the religious authorities in Interlaken. They just needed a place of their own. Inside, it is simple, modest and quiet, a classic Protestant Saalkirche or hall church. The stained glass windows paint the light in soft colours, offering a rare moment of silence away from the busy train station and the crowds outside. It remains a place of worship for the locals, who have called this valley home for generations. If you listen at the top of the hour, you will hear the bells echoing off the cliff walls. For centuries, these bells regulated the life of the farmers and miners who lived here. Today, they are a reminder that despite the thousands of visitors passing through, this is still a living, breathing village community. No matter where you stand in the village, there is one presence you cannot ignore. The Storbuck Falls is the signature landmark of Lauterbrunnen, and one of the most iconic sights in the entire Swiss Alps. Plunging 297 metres from the hanging valley above, it is one of the highest free-falling waterfalls in Switzerland. What makes this waterfall so unique isn't just its height, but how it falls. In the summer, the warm winds swirl around the cliff face, and the water often never hits the ground as a stream. Instead, it sprays out in all directions, turning into a fine mist. This is actually where it gets its name. Staub is the German word for dust. It is literally a waterfall of water dust. It is a view that changes every day. Sometimes it is a roaring torrent after a storm, and other times it is a ghostly veil drifting in the wind. It is the backdrop to every life lived here and every photo taken here. But you can't just admire the Staubbach falls from a distance. If you really want to understand the power of this place, you have to get up close. And the best part, you can actually walk right into it. There is a path that zigzags up from the valley floor. It is a bit of a steep climb, but it leads to something unique. A rock gallery and a tunnel cut deep into the cliffside. As you walk through the darkness of the mountain, the sound of the water gets louder and louder until you step out onto a balcony carved into the rock face. Suddenly, you are standing directly behind the curtain of water. From here, you aren't just looking at the view, you are in it. The mist is heavy, so yes, bring a rain jacket if you don't want to get soaked. Looking down through the spray at the village below, you realise just how massive these cliffs really are. Now, before we go any deeper into the valley, we need to talk about how you actually get here. My biggest piece of advice, take the train. The journey from Interlaken Ost to Lauterbrunnen is one of the most scenic short commutes in the world. You will be looking for the blue and yellow Bernese Oberland Railway train. It leaves every 30 minutes and gets you from the city to the waterfalls in just 20 minutes. You might be tempted to drive, but honestly, I wouldn't recommend it. This valley is narrow, and parking is extremely limited and expensive. Plus, if you plan to visit the higher villages like Wengen or Murren later, you can't take your car anyway. They are completely car-free zones. Save yourself the stress, park the car in Interlaken, and let the train driver handle the views. And here is a pro tip for your wallet. Switzerland is not cheap and individual cable car tickets add up fast. If you plan on exploring more than just the valley floor, look into getting a Swiss travel pass or the regional Bernese Oberland pass. They give you unlimited access to most trains and lifts. And trust me, after a few days of exploring, they basically pay for themselves. You can take the train, but if you really want to feel the pulse of this valley, you have to walk it. The hiking here ranges from gentle strolls to lung-busting climbs. If you want something easy and relaxing, take the path from Lauterbrunnen to Steckelberg. It is a flat, easy walk along the valley floor that takes about an hour or two. You will pass right underneath the vertical cliffs and waterfalls. It is like walking through a canyon in a dream. For those who want to get higher without too much struggle, head up to Murren and take the Mountain View Trail over to Grutskal. Most people walk it the other way, but however you do it, you are walking along a balcony overlooking the world. To your left, you have the big three, the Eiger, Monch and Jungfrau peaks, dominating the horizon. It is a moderate hike, but the views are absolutely world-class. Now, if you are a serious hiker and you want a challenge, there is one spot you need to know, Tanzbodeli. The name translates to the dance floor. It is a very steep, strenuous climb that will test your legs, but when you reach the top, it flattens out into a grassy plateau. The reward is a 360-degree panoramic view of the glaciers and the valley below. That feels completely untouched. but maybe you would rather fly than walk. Lauterbrunnen is one of the most famous places on Earth for paragliding. You will see them constantly circling in the sky like colourful birds. Because of the steep walls and calm air, it is the perfect place for a tandem flight. Seeing the waterfalls from above is an experience you will never forget. Finally, there are the two giants of tourism. First, the Jungfraujoch, known as the top of Europe. It is the highest railway station on the continent, sitting at 3,454 meters. It is expensive, yes, but standing there surrounded by eternal ice and the Aletsch Glacier is iconic. On the opposite side of the valley is the Schilthorn, or Piz Gloria. If it looks familiar, it is because this was the villain's lair in the James Bond movie on Her Majesty's Secret Service. You can take the cable car all the way up for a 360-degree skyline view that includes over 200 mountain peaks, whether you want movie history or just the best view in the Alps. This is the spot.
Oh, waterfalls. Yeah. Oh, we're in Skyrim, bro. This shit is really fun.
Thank you so much for joining us on this walk through the Valley of 72 Waterfalls. It was a privilege to share this corner of the world with you, and we hope it brought a little bit of the Alps into your day. If you enjoyed this journey, please hit that like button. It really supports the channel, and we would love to hear from you. Is Lauterbrunnen on your bucket list, or have you already visited? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Don't forget to subscribe for the next adventure. Safe travels, and we will see you in the next video.